You're listening to TGI Sports Talk with your host, Keith Angle, on Northeast Streaming Sports.
Good morning, everybody. Keith Angle for TGI Sports Talk. It's Sunday. I don't know. What's the date? 17th? January 17th. Gosh, this month is flying by. I hope you're all doing well. Hope those of you who are in position to get your COVID vaccine have gotten it. It's been an interesting week again in sports. We got a lot to cover. The first thing I want to say again is thanks to all of you that are watching live and those of you that will watch this later on. We had our best Sunday show as far as viewership through this week, over 5,000 views, I believe now. So thank you to all of you. And that's thanks to the group. So the groups that are getting this, remember, I'm going to kind of say this beforehand because I don't want the admins to get mad at me. And as I said last week, please reach out to me if you do have any issue. If I'm sharing this to your group, whether it's a Yankee site or a Met site or a Major League Baseball site in general, NFL, NBA, college, it's because there's content in here that will apply to you. So, and I think that you'll have some interest in. I'd love to get your comments about that content, and then we'll, I'll certainly be happy to reply. I spent a lot of time. I had some time off from work since the 5th or so, or 6th, I guess. I spent a lot of time replying to people on a post I put up this week, which I'll talk about in a second. I also want to thank my guest from Friday, Eric Soderholm, former Major League Baseball player with the Twins and the White Sox and the Yankees. We had a nice time. A little connection problem on Eric's end, but I think it comes off okay. We had some great positive feedback from some of the Twins and White Sox sites that I've shared it to. So thank you to Eric, and we'll be pushing his Solder World Wellness Center in the Chicago area as well. So thank you all again for joining me. It's been an interesting week in life in general. As we know, the big story, of course, was Ken Jennings' first week on Jeopardy. Those of you who know me, maybe a lot of you guys don't. Some other people, my work people and whatnot, my wife obviously, knows that I'm a huge Jeopardy fan and a huge Alex Trebek fan. And I was sad, when he was diagnosed with his illness, and sad when he passed. But Ken Jennings is going to be, I guess, 6 weeks he's got in the books of shows now. I had my doubts, and I think he did a great tribute to Alex's first show out. And he was, you could tell he was finding his feet, trying to get his feet under him. But I think by Friday he was doing a really good job. So off the beaten track of sports, but just something that I wanted to touch on is I'm very big Jeopardy fan and will continue to be. Good morning, Dave Guyette. Good morning. Yes. How about those Buffalo Bills? We'll be talking about them in just a little bit. Dave, great job. Congratulations to all you Bills fans out there, Dave included. I know Dave's a big Bills fan. Rick Sherlock, good morning. Bill Pulver, how about them Jets? Well, we got a lot to talk about with the Jets too, or at least some to talk about. So we'll get to all that. We're going to talk about just to kind of cover the bases a little bit. We're going to talk about. I'm going to start with the college football wrap up. We won't spend a lot of time on it, but I want to talk about the final. I want to talk about Nick Saban, a little bit about the playoff situation, my love affair with Devontae Smith. And then we'll move on to the NFL, yesterday's games and today's games and some coaching news. Maybe we'll look at the quarterback situation a little bit, depending on time. We got stuff to talk about with the Yankees re-signing DJ LeMahieu and still having some issues. I did a vlog yesterday that touched on that, which I'll talk about later. And then with time permitting, we'll get into the NBA and the Knicks and Nets. And that's been a big trade for James Harden this past week. So. Yeah, Drew's talking about Drew's gone back to my Jeopardy. Yes, I know they tape 5 shows a day, so that was his last show of the day. I get that. They actually tape all their shows in about 5 months, the way I understand it. So it's not a bad gig. Alex had a pretty good gig for $10 million a year, working 5 months a year. But anyway, I think by the end of, when I say the end of the week, I'm talking about the end of my week, and I watched 5 shows in that week. Anyway, let's move on. College football. Finally, we're at the end of the season. It's been a long, winding road in college football this year with COVID-19, the Big Ten, the Pac-12. Oh, gosh, other leagues deciding not to play in the fall, maybe play in the spring. Then they had to change their minds. They decided to play, and we had a lot of postponed and canceled games. A lot of controversy again about the playoff, which I'll talk about. Alabama ends up winning. Ohio State and Alabama were in the final, as you know. I think I predicted an easy win for Alabama, and it was 52-24. Alabama really took control of this game in the second quarter, and it was basically over from that point. The way I look at it, I didn't see Ohio State really making a serious run after halftime. Mac Jones, 464 yards and 5 touchdowns, certainly helps him in his draft status. He's no surprise he's declared for the draft. Devontae Smith, the best player in the draft, 12 receptions, 215 yards, 3 touchdowns in a half of football. And, of course, Najee Harris with 79 yards on the ground and 2 touchdowns. Look at, guys, this really, not that it needed any solidifying, but Nick Saban's legacy is solidified here. He now has won 7 national championships, if I count right, most of any coach in history, passing the legendary Alabama coach Bear Bryant. I believe Bear Bryant won all 6 of his championships with Alabama. Nick Saban's also done this. Well, 6 of these championships. He won a championship with LSU before he went to Miami. But I believe he came back to, came back to college in 2007, I want to say, maybe 2006. So anyway, in 13, 14 years, he's won 7 championships. Say what you want about, the game and the way it's geared towards Power 5 teams, and I have my own opinions. I don't care what you say. Nick Saban is the greatest coach in college football history. To me, it's without a doubt. They got to reload a little this year. Not so much players. They've always are reloading with players. But the coaching staff, he's lost 4 or 5 assistants, so they've got to start from scratch. The number 1 assistant, Steve Sarkisian, got the Texas job. Bill O'Brien has been hired as the offensive coordinator there. That'll work out well. For all Bill O'Brien's faults as a head coach in the NFL, Bill O'Brien is a very good offensive coordinator and was very successful with the Patriots years back. So Nick Saban, I think, as I say, has really solidified his legacy going forward. The playoff system itself, again, is proving to be a problem. I looked at here's the thing. I'm looking at 2020 rankings, 2021 rankings already, right? And this is the problem with preseason polls. If a really good team doesn't get ranked in the top 15 or whatever, they're going to have a hard time climbing to the top unless the teams at the top have really bad years. And this year was one of those years where Michigan and Penn State and whatnot did have bad years after being ranked very high. Probably some other teams I can throw in there. But you've got Clemson and Alabama at the top next year, followed by Oklahoma, followed by Georgia, followed by Ohio State, followed by Texas A&M. Now, interestingly enough, the next 4 teams, you've got and North Carolina, Iowa State, and Indiana. So now you got some teams, some new blood that's got a chance if they get and play well and win games early. They got a chance to get themselves in a ranking position. So when the playoff rankings start, they're not coming from 20th and trying to get to 4th. It's almost impossible. Unless you're a Power 5 team. Cincinnati's at 11, by the way. But my problem is, the preseason rankings go a long ways in determining these playoff spots, because if you're starting way back in the pack, you got a hard time making up ground. Depending on the conference you play in, of course. So I'll go back to I'm not going to rehash the whole thing. The NCAA is going to revisit the playoff system a little bit. Do I expect them to go to the plan that I like, 16 teams? No. Unfortunately, no. I still think it's the best plan. And by the way, I don't know if this guy will be watching, and I don't remember his name, but when I did my vlog about this 16-team playoff and I went in detail about how I saw it working, with every conference champion getting in and having 6 at-large teams. I think there was 10 conferences that would be counted and 6 at-large teams. It was a very well-received vlog. I got a lot of opinion in all ways. Some people agreed, some people vehemently denied or argued with it. But I on my YouTube feed, I had a guy threaten me with copyright infringement because I'd stolen his idea. He'd written a book about this in 2012. Like he's the only guy who ever had this thought probably before. Maybe he's the only guy who wrote a book about it and got a copyright. Anyway, I've heard talking heads talking about different playoff scenarios, including the one I've talked about for years. It was very funny that this guy got into a back and forth with me in comments on YouTube about how I needed to acknowledge him. I would, if I could think of his name right now, I would acknowledge him. But I went and looked, and his book. There is a book. There is a book, and I don't think one person's bought it, at least not on Amazon. There's not a single review. So anyway, I find this very funny. So anyway, the NCAA is revisiting this. I mean, at best, we'll probably get to an 18 playoff, which I think would help this some. My fear is that the power conferences would still have a lock on this, because it would allow some of their, the second place teams and some teams, again, that didn't win conference championships, or maybe didn't even get to their conference championship game to get in. Again, my plan, they could get in, but all the champions will be in. They'll all have a chance. Actually, interesting enough, in doing some research on this week, I read that a lot of the many, apparently, NCAA football coaches are in favor of a 32-team playoff. I don't know how you do that without totally blowing up the bowl system, which maybe wouldn't be a bad idea, but that's fine. I don't see that coming off. I don't see again, I talked about it when I've talked about this playoff system. We're playing all these bowl games that are meaningless. You can keep them, but add something to, however many games, a 16-team playoff, however many games it brings in, 8, 12, whatever, 16 games total. You can bring some meaning to some of these meaningless bowl games and finish up with a true national champion. I don't think it waters down the regular season. I'm not going to go into great detail about this because I've talked about it ad nauseum. And I do have a vlog out there. Go check it out. It will not water down the regular season. Games become more important, not less. Winning your conference championship as a Power 5 team becomes much more important. So, also becomes important for the non-power conference teams, because they've got to win their championship to get in. They're not going to get at-large bids. Just like the NCAA tournament, there's going to be a lot of one-bid conferences. So, lastly on the college football front, and we'll talk about this a little bit too when we get into the NFL, I guess. Najee Harris, again, Mac Jones owes Najee Harris probably millions of dollars, because without Najee Harris and Waddle and Harris, Mac Jones isn't got the numbers that he has. He's a really good quarterback, and maybe he'll be a good quarterback in the NFL. I don't know. There's no sure things in this draft except Trevor Lawrence as far as quarterbacks go. But I had a post this week I put up, and I shared with a lot of the college football, the pro football sites and Jet sites. And I said the Jets are nuts if they don't take Devontae Smith at number 2, and I got lots of pushback. Some of it was good, good pushback. I mean, they're right. He's small. He needs to bulk up. He won't go running free in the NFL the way he did at Alabama. But look at, guys, all you got to do is actually watch him play to know that he is above. Yes, Chase is good from LSU, but he sat out the year. Waddle's good, had some injury problems. These guys are all good wide receivers. And I don't always agree that I probably wouldn't many years say you should take a wide receiver in the top 2 picks, but look at Sam Darnold looks like he's going to be the Jets quarterback. I cannot believe that their new head coach, which we'll talk about in a little bit, is going to pick, Robert Saleh is going to pick a quarterback at number 2, which is going to be a crapshoot. Fields is a crapshoot. Kyle Trask is a crapshoot. I'm sorry, he's not the Zach Taylor would be probably the 3rd rated. And we'll talk about that stuff here in a little bit. But anyway, I got a lot of guys. I probably had half the people agreeing with me and half not. The half that weren't were very vehement that the Jets needed to take an offensive tackle there. Oh, some actually wanted a quarterback. Some thought they could pass on. They could trade down and get Smith later. Smith probably will not get by the Dolphins. The Dolphins will be taking Smith at 3rd. At 30, I'm positive. I actually had a Miami fan, and again, I'm not trying to belittle anybody. You guys are all entitled to your opinion, and my opinion is no better than yours. But he actually was trying to convince me that the Dolphins were going to take a quarterback at 3 to compete with Tua. Well, nobody in the history of football has taken 2 quarterbacks in the top 3 picks in back-to-back years. Not that I can remember. If you can prove me wrong, I'll go for it. He brought up the Cardinals, but it wasn't back-to-back years between Rosen and Kyle Murray, I don't believe. So that doesn't mean that Tua can't be moved. I mean, there's a possibility he'll move to Miami. So we can talk about that a little bit in the NFL section. So I'm going to wrap up college football. That's all I got to cover. We're probably done for a little while there. We'll be talking about the draft, but that's more of an NFL topic. And we mentioned the NFL. We are going to talk a little bit now about the NFL playoffs yesterday, the NFL playoff games today. I wonder how long it's going to take before I get cut off one of my shows for using the NFL Films music. Hopefully we won't. We won't play it that long so we don't get caught. Playoff games yesterday is where we'll start in the NFL. Couple interesting games. Green Bay beats the Rams 32-18. A lot of people thought the Rams were going to have a very good chance to win this game, if not cover. I will tell you, I bet 2 winners yesterday. So playoff time is here, and we're starting to turn it around. Make up some ground before the year's out. Green Bay was a 7-point favorite. Bills were a 2.5-point favorite. I bet them both. Rams won 32-18. Again, a lot of people thought the Rams had a great chance with the way they manhandled Seattle the week before. But the fact of the matter is that Aaron Rodgers has got more weapons than Russell Wilson. It's just that clear. Adams out of the running back position is really good. Dillon is another great compliment. Williams back there. They go 3 deep. They play very well. Yeah, we'll get to Lamar in a second. But I think the Green Bay played well in all facets of the game yesterday. Goff was only threw for 170 yards. They only ran, I think, for 45 yards. The Green Bay defense was really good and obviously underrated. Rodgers threw for a couple of touchdowns. As I said, Goff was sacked 4 times, Rodgers none. These are huge points in this game. And the Rams were, it looked like the game, the Rams were just hanging around. And every time it looked like they might have a chance, the Green Bay defense came up and made some big stops, played well. They missed Cooper Kupp yesterday. I think Goff would have had a better chance. The LA offense would have had a better chance if Kupp had played yesterday. But hey, everybody has injuries. Green Bay outrushed them 88-86. I'm sorry, 188-86, I think was the yardage. Just a pretty good performance. And by the way, Aaron Rodgers gets to play the first NFC Championship game of his career. And I was surprised to read this yesterday at home in Lambeau Field next week. Going to be very interesting. I haven't updated our playoff standings yet, which maybe I will do. I don't know. I think the NFC game is late that day too. So who knows? Weather could be a factor. Let's see. Ramsey's overrated on the Rams. I don't disagree, Rick. When it comes to defensive backs, I mean, nobody can play on an island, right? You get one good defensive back, and I'm not going to put this all on Ramsey because the defensive backfield didn't play that well at all for the Rams. And that's a unit that really needs to play cohesively together. And if they don't, you're going to have problems. So, and I think that was the case yesterday. But I'm not a big – Ramsey is a good player. I think he's a little bit overrated. One other thing, Aaron Rodgers will be a Jeopardy host. Katie Kirk. I hadn't heard about Mayim. I can't say her last name, but she's from The Big Bang Theory, if you guys don't know. Love Bill Whitaker of 60 Minutes. We're on to Jeopardy now again. But, it's funny. I heard Aaron Rodgers was going to be just one-off thing. I didn't know that he was actually wants the job. It's going to be a big pay cut for him. But then maybe he can do both. I don't know. Nice retirement job for Aaron Rodgers, huh? It'll be interesting to see what happens there. I love Bill Whitaker, by the way, so he's possibly a good call there, Drew. Rado, Ramsey's stats against elite wide receivers show different. You know what? Again, I'm going to tell you that it comes from the unit playing well together. I don't disagree that he's not a good defensive back, right? Look at Stephon Gilmore. His numbers look good. Made the All-Pro team. He didn't play well this year. All you got to do is watch the games. You can't just look at stats. Look at guys who drive in 130 runs in baseball and never had to have a big hit in an entire year. But again, I'm not saying Ramsey isn't a great player. I'm not saying that Gilmore's not a great player, but they're only going to be as good as the other, the rest of their unit. So, but that's a good call, Rado. He's not a bad player. Well, we'll stick on him for a second since Rick's got a comment here. Watch him fail to come up and support on the run. Again, there's a lot of guys like that. Deion Sanders didn't play the run real great, but he's certainly one of the best cover cornerbacks of all time. So, which in today's game, what's more important? Supporting the run, which is still important if you're going to be an all-around great player, or covering the pass in today's game. Yep, I agree. Everybody's got to do their job, as we've talked about. There was one other thing I want to bring up here. What do we got here? No team should be relying on just one player to define their success. Can't agree more, Drew. Go back and look again. I'll tick Billy Pulver off here early. Look at the early Patriot Super Bowl teams before Tom Brady was Tom Brady. He won Super Bowls with Troy Brown and David Patton as wide receivers. It's a team game. Billy's got a very good point here, too. And I'm going to bring this up. 8,000 fans at Lambeau. I think all the sites of the games, I'm not positive about the Superdome. 8,000 fans in Lambeau, 6,700 or whatever in Buffalo yesterday. Doesn't sound like a lot, but oh my gosh. It made a difference. I don't believe TV was enhancing the noise. 8,000 people can make a lot of noise. And I think having fans in the stadiums, we talked about this on one of the earlier shows, right? When we were talking about home field advantage. And I think we were talking about it in the baseball playoffs even. I might have gotten into this conversation with Drew and some other people. That home field advantage didn't mean as much because fans weren't in the stadium. And there's some credence to that. So I think now, even with a minimal amount of fans in the stadium, I think that it makes a difference. I think those guys have played in empty stadiums so long, they really want to step up for these fans. I think it's made a huge difference in Buffalo the last 2 weeks, and I think it made a big difference in Lambeau yesterday. I'm going to go back here a second. Rattle's talking about, speaking of the kid from Alabama, when's the last time an elite wide receiver won a Super Bowl? I asked because the talk the Giants pick him, give me a pass rusher alignment. Well, again, it's a personal thing. An elite wide receiver winning a Super Bowl, gosh, you're probably right. I mean, if you don't count Tyreek Hill as an elite wide receiver, which I do, he's not in this kid's class, I can tell you right now. I'd have to do a little bit of research and look back at that, but I can tell you Randy Moss never won one with the Patriots, never won one anywhere. But that isn't necessarily a reflection of the player. Again, we just talked about Rattle. There's a lot of these guys. Look at, if what I want to happen happens, and he goes to the Jets, maybe he never wins a Super Bowl just because these elite wide receivers end up on bad teams, or could end up on bad teams. So I'd have to do a little research on that. We'll look at that. We'll look at that a little more. Drew with 3,500 fans allowed in NOLA. So yeah, good. Every site's got some kind of fans, as long as they're being safe and doing it right. You know, I talked last week about, I didn't understand how they were doing it in Buffalo, to be honest with you, but apparently there's been no backlash, because last week I know 160 people were not allowed to come in because they tested positive, and it's got a 30% fail rate. So if 30% of those people were actually negative that tested positive, then I got to think that 30% of the people that tested negative that got into the game might have been positive. I don't know. Hard to say. Moss did not win I think Rattle's making a joke here. You know damn well Moss didn't win a Super Bowl. And they lost to a team that I'm having trouble remembering. I might have to have some more coffee, Rattle. Maybe I'll remember who they lost to in that Super Bowl. 18-1. Moving on. Let's get to the Bills game. The Bills game. Let's play a little more. I'll get myself in trouble, but the Bills and the Ravens. Windy and cold. Actually, not that cold, but windy yesterday in Buffalo. A really classic, I think, defensive battle yesterday between the Bills and the Ravens. I mean, somebody made a comment here earlier, and I'll find it. Rick had said earlier, Lamar comes up with another playoff egg. Lamar Jackson, didn't have a great game, 14-24 with an interception. That interception was huge. Jackson runs it back 101 yards. I think that was early in the fourth quarter, if I remember. Really, really, I think that was the end of the game, especially since Jackson went out with a concussion right afterwards. The Baltimore was hurt by the usually automatic Tucker missing 2 field goals, hitting upright twice. The wind was tough last night. I mean, Allen played a great game. Threw for 206 yards, I think, a touchdown, no turnovers, which is huge. But the ball was doing weird things. You watched guys get overthrown that were wide open, or not wide open. Well, fourth quarter, Hudley missed a guy. Hudley, who came in for Jackson, missed a guy wide open. But the wind was funky. I mean, the Baltimore players were missing, were dropping balls right and left. Not a good performance by Baltimore again, coming up with a stinker in a playoff game. What else did I want to talk about there? Again, the drops hurt Jackson. He ran the ball not so well as well. Buffalo played great defense. They gave up some yards. They bent, but they didn't break. Played great defense. Probably their best defensive game. Definitely their best defensive game of the year. And remember, this is a Buffalo defense that carried them before this year. Now the offense is carrying them. Diggs was awesome. Made some big catches. But they're throwing the football, trying to run the clock out. They're throwing the football last night in the fourth quarter, which Huntley, does it say Hudley? Whatever. Malaprops are my job. Where was I? Oh, yeah, last year there's no way the Buffalo Bills, if they were ahead in the fourth quarter, would be throwing the ball nearly every down. I mean, Singleton only got 7 carries last night. They would have, and again, they were depleted in the running back ranks, so I understand that. Yeah, I agree with Rado here. The game plan by the defensive staff of the Buffalo Bills was really tremendous. They did a great job containing Lamar, and if you take away his legs and you make him throw the football, he's going to struggle, and he struggled last night. Rick's right. I'll give him a little bit of a pass, but he had some drop passes. It's funny. Chris Collinsworth said last night during this game that playing in Buffalo was one of the hardest places he ever played because the ball did funny things all the time. And, it's always, but again, both teams are playing the same field and same conditions. I get that. But, if you're used to knuckleballs coming at you the whole time, I guess it's much easier. Anyway, I'll tell you what, I have not been a big believer in Josh Allen and the Bills all year until the last quarter of the season, I guess. Playing great football. The defense is starting to play well. And if momentum is a real thing, they'll have a puncher's chance next week, even though I still think Kansas City is the best team in the league and is still the odds-on favorite to win the Super Bowl, and which means they're the odds-on favorite to win next week, and I'll probably be betting them. Yeah, well, Billy brings up a good point. When you look at the game stats, you would never guess Buffalo won. Well, that's a thing about stats, right? That's why you play the games, and the stats don't necessarily mean everything. But turnovers are a huge part of the game. You get a big turnover in a close game like that, and that turns everything around. It's a one-score game when Jackson runs that interception back 101 yards. Game's pretty much over at that point. So great job by the Bills. Great job by their defense. Great job by Josh Allen in very difficult conditions. Numbers aren't outstanding, but he managed the game. That's the key. Josh Allen is doing things now that people said Josh Allen would never know. Just shows your point that some quarters and I head coaches. I know that's my point. Trying to think where that comes into play here. Because we can't be talking about. You mean because the defensive game plan? I guess that's what you're referring to. Is that they were excellent at what they did, but maybe they wouldn't be so excellent at being head coaches. Yeah. Oh, Leslie Frazier. Oh, I got you now. Yeah, Leslie Frazier is a defensive coordinator for Buffalo. So, good call there, Rick. A great defensive coordinator. They've struggled this year a bit, but they're now again at the right time. They're peaking. So, and he was not. Well, I guess he had some moderate success, but he was not by any means a very successful NFL head coach. So, we'll talk more about that. Let's talk about today's games. Actually, before we do that, let me see if I can quickly pull up our. Can I pull up? How hard is it going to be for me to find this? I wanted to update this morning, guys, and I did not do it. So I'm going to try to do it on the fly. So yesterday, TGI Sports Talk had the Bills, and that's it because my Seahawks were out. So I'm only getting 2 points for a total of, oops, wrong keyboard. Too many keyboards to work off of. Total of 6. Drew's got the Packers yesterday only, so he's got 2 points. Billy said he was going to make a run with the Packers and the Bills and Seahawks and Chiefs, which I don't think the Seahawks can win today, Bill. But you do collect 4 points for yesterday. Rick Sherlock, Bills and Packers will continue to lead the field, I'm sure. Mark Robertshaw, Bills and Packers. He's got a 4-pointer. And my boy Mark, Bills, and he's got actually the Saints and the Bucks playing. They're playing each other, so he's got very little chance to get too many points. He's actually got 2 points. Let's update this quickly. Our leaders with 2 games left today: Rick Sherlock 9 points, Mark Robertshaw with 8, TGI Sports Talk with 7, Billy Pulver with 6. Looks like Mark with 5, Drew with 5, and that's where we stand. I'll update that and send it to you guys later in the week. But that's our little TGI Sports Playoff Challenge. So there's where we stand. It is Rick's to lose. Right now, you get ahead. Now you do get some extra points in the Super Bowl, but, as long as you got the Super Bowl winner, anybody who's got Kansas City's probably in great shape. Mark's got the Bucks, though. I'll tell you what, Mark will come from behind and win. Mark Matheson, if TB and the Bucks should stay hot and win the Super Bowl, which I don't see them doing. 7. I didn't get 7. I got 2. I got 6 points. I have a total of 6. 4 last week and 2 this week. That's correct. 6. All right, today's games, guys. Kansas City. Let's start. Who's playing early? I'm going to start with the game that's early. I think it's Kansas City and let's see. Hang on 1 second. Didn't open this window up for myself. Where the heck are we? Bear with me, guys. Here we are. All right. You guys can throw your picks in. We're not counting them or anything. I'll mention them as we talk about them, but here we go. The early game today is going to be Cleveland. This is at 3:05, by the way, on CBS. Cleveland and the Kansas City Chiefs. 10-point favorite the Chiefs are. I love the Chiefs today. Everybody seemed to be jumping on the Browns bandwagon after last week's clobbering of the Steelers. Without their head coach, without some key offensive players, missing a key offensive lineman, and several other players and coaches. And they they got out to a big start. And I'm not going to say Pittsburgh ever got in the game, but good grief. Pittsburgh scored a lot of points and closed this game, near the end. But, they're playing a Steelers team in my mind that is done. They need to make some major changes there. Big Ben did not look good, especially early on. I mean, they set the tone for that game when they snapped a ball over his head in the first snap for a touchdown. So the Browns, while they won, I'm just not crazy about You know me and Baker Mayfield. And you know me and the Kansas City Chiefs. I think they're the best team. I think they play better defense than people think. Their offense makes their defense a better defensive unit because they're playing from ahead so often, right? Or even when they're playing from behind. My gosh, don't forget, I don't care what happens in this game. Last week, the Browns got ahead in this game 24-0. Well, guess what? The Chiefs fell behind 24-0 last year against the Texans, and they were in the first quarter, and they were ahead at halftime, 28-24. It's a great team. Patrick Mahomes does things that nobody else can do, even things you don't know. So he runs the ball better than you think. He comes up with more big runs. I mean, I guess he's not given credit for coming up with more big runs. There's other guys that obviously run the football a lot, like Lamar Jackson, Russell Wilson will run the ball a lot. But Mahomes gets big runs in big spots. And he's not a running quarterback per se, but he is just, man, in charge of the game at all times. So I just think there's too many weapons here. Andy Reid is on top of his game. Did they struggle a little during the year at 14-2, if you can call 14-2 struggling? So they didn't cover the spread. I don't know what they were, 7-9 against the spread or something. Who cares? It matters to me if I bet them today, but they're the better team. I said early on in the year, at least mid-season, that their biggest enemy was going to be boredom. Turns out it was true. They struggled here and there, but they lost 2 games. One to a legendary rivalry team in the Raiders, when the Raiders were playing good football before they fell apart. So again, Kansas City's too good, too many weapons. They're good in every facet of the game. Their special teams don't get the credit they deserve either. And with Cleveland, I'm just not convinced. They will run the football. That will be their MO. They're going to keep the hands. If they can keep, and again, if they can keep the ball out of Patrick Mahomes' hands enough with that running game. Good point. Cleveland has the worst rated defense remaining in the playoffs. I don't think this game will be close, to be honest with you. The Browns will probably score some points. If they don't fall too far behind, then they can use that running game, because they can ground it out. Good morning, Mark Robert Shaw. Good to see you this morning. You got a comment in there, but it's empty. So I just think it's going to be Kansas City fairly easily here. I'll call it a 14-point win just to be fair. Let's call it 35-21. But still got to play the game. So that's going to be my pick today. Kansas City moves on to the championship game to play the Buffalo Bills, and that'll be an interesting matchup. The late game today is going to be, let's play some music. Tom Brady and the Tampa Bay Bucks. Tom Brady getting the Bucks to the playoffs for the first time since 2007. They're trying to get them to the NFC Championships game since probably the first time since 2002. I'll step back here for a second. That's okay. We're going to stay where we are here. Tom Brady goes into New Orleans. Very interestingly enough, these guys are about 85 years old combined, 84 years old combined, and the other two quarterbacks are about 49 or 50. Saints have handled Tom Brady and the Saints very well twice this year. Very handily the last time. I will say it's very hard to win 3 times against the same team in a year. It's happened. It certainly happens, but it's very difficult. Very difficult. By the way, the Saints are a 3-point favorite here. I doubt there's ever been a playoff matchup with quarterbacks the age of these guys, the combined age of these guys. Tampa Bay has been playing better, but again, they played a Washington team, guys, that didn't have a quarterback. That kid played gamely, played most of the game, or the second half of the game with what I read, separated. I don't know if it was a separated shoulder. I don't really remember, but I just think there's still something missing with Tampa Bay. Lots of weapons. They played better the last month. Where are we time-wise? Breeze has had, getting healthier by the week. The team itself is getting healthier by the week. Kamara's healthier. Thomas is healthier. So the weapons, it's not like the weapons are non-existent on the Saints. Might bet the over in this game and just have at it. I haven't decided yet. Once I get through chatting here, we'll see what I got to say. But this is going to be a defining game, I think, in the career of these two quarterbacks, right? And I'll post this just so everybody can understand how consistent Billy is with some of his nonsense. Bucks will get the refs' calls. Billy, you got to root for a team that's got a chance to win now and again. I don't know what to tell you. And it is, Drew brings up the point I was just going to mention. This is a pivotal game for two quarterbacks because Breeze is likely going to retire after the year. All signs point to the fact that he will not be back with the Saints or anybody else. Tom Brady likely will be back next year, but Tom Brady went to the Bucs to win a Super Bowl, not losing the divisional round. I had this conversation when I was on the Mac and Jack show on Friday about whether this year would be a failure for the Bucs if they lost today. I think it is. I think it would be a failure if they lost this game today. I think the Saints play a better, consistent defense than the Buccaneers. And again, the Buccaneers have tons of weapons, but too many times the quarterback and the coach haven't been on the same page. I think the Saints are going to get it done today at minus 3 points. And I'm not sure if my bet will be a -3 or the over at 52. We'll see. I got to give that some more consideration, but I got about, I don't know, 7 hours. I got about 9 hours to figure that out. So that would leave us next week, and we'll certainly have some great conversation about this. We'll dive into these games in depth next week. We would have the Bucks. We would have the Saints at the Packers. Got to be a tough spot for the Saints to go outside and win in Green Bay with even a minimal amount of fans in play. And who knows what the weather will be. And you'd also have the Bills at Kansas City, which is going to be a great matchup. I don't think Kansas City will run away from the Bills. I think the Bills will put up a good fight. The Bills are on a mission. The Bills are gelling at the right time, really coming together and peaking at the right time. And it's going to be a really fun game to watch next week, I think, Bills in Kansas City. So I would give the Bills a much better chance of winning this game, obviously, if they got to play another game in their home park. Billy sees the Bucks winning. Of course you would. As you see, the referees are going to cheat to give them the game, of course, which will not be happening. So, by the way, if the Saints lose today, I picked the Saints to win. If the Saints lose, I will not be coming on here next week and saying, they got cheated. Let me just touch on this. And Drew, I'm not going to let him push my buttons, I promise. But I think I need to be clear because I don't know if I've said it. If I haven't said it on this show, I'm shocked. I've said it in many of my vlogs. I posted it on Facebook for years. If you leave yourself in a position to get beat by the referees, And Billy didn't mention cheating. Not in your Bucks post. Anyway, if you say, whatever. It's if you, as a football team or a baseball team or a basketball team, if you leave yourself in a position to get beat by the referees, to get beat by a bad call, well, then shame on you. Don't leave yourself in that position. Play better football. I've heard this stuff for years, and I watch Giant fans and cry about this, and Steeler fans cry about that. And you know what? If a game comes down to one play, he already got me. Rick says it's too late. He already got me. If a game comes down to one play and you lose it, you're not going to get me to talk about the Tuck rule, Bill. It was a rule. And again, one play. If you leave yourself in a position to get beat by one call, one play, then shame on you. So you have never heard me, as a Yankee fan, as a Patriot fan, any fan, ever complain about the refereeing in a football game. I'll point out bad calls. If I have a rooting interest, though, I don't ever blame my team's loss on refereeing. Ever. Just, again, philosophy that I have. Be better. You would say different if I were a Raider fan. Actually, I wouldn't. I wouldn't say different. Look at it. I think I'm fairly consistent in this, guys. I've been on the wrong end of a lot of calls, which people conveniently forget. I can bring back a game against the Giants in the Super Bowl with some calls that weren't made. Holding in the grasp. Whatever. And I've been on the good side for 20 years and on the bad side for 20 years before that. So, again, we still lost a lot of games over those 20 years, right? I never once blamed a referee. We lost Super Bowls to the Giants. Again, I don't blame referees. I don't blame anybody but my own team. Play better. Score more points. Win games. Pretty simple stuff, guys. But that's the mark of fandom, right? We got to blame somebody. So, I just want my team to play better. Now you're saying what is true. I don't know what I'm saying that's true now that I wasn't saying before, but I said the same thing forever. Don't let your team get beat by bad calls. Play better football. I laughed for years about the people complaining about the Patriots and, it's boring. They win every year. Alabama wins every year. It's boring. Well, get better. The other teams play in the same league. You play with the same rules. You get better. So, anyway. Oh, I just mentioned the Giants. No, I said if I was a complainer, I could have. Oh, I said the team's name. Yeah. Billy congratulates the Patriots. Thank you, Billy. We're going to rebuild. We'll be talking about that in the weeks to come. Let's move on. Not to think I'm leaving that up, but... And listen, I congratulate the Giant teams that beat us and the Eagle team that beat us in the Super Bowls. They played better that day. That's all there is to it. Better teams that day. Team to show up is what matters. Let's talk about some coaching situations in the NFL. Big news this week. I'm going to start with the biggest one, even though the Jet fans might agree it's not the biggest one. Urban Meyer going to the Jacksonville Jaguars. I think this is, a tremendous move by Jacksonville. I'm excited to see Urban Meyer coach in the NFL. Urban Meyer has won every place that he's been, whether it was Bowling Green, Utah, Florida, Ohio State. He's won everywhere he's been. He won national championships at Florida and Ohio State. He had a team in Utah that was in contention for a national championship one year. Always consistent winners. And you know what? There's talk about whether Urban can deal with the NFL, and Urban is very hard on himself with losses. I think every coach is hard on himself with losses, and it's different in the NFL. You know, you lose a couple of games, it's not the end of the world. In college, it is. If you're playing at schools like Florida and Ohio State, a couple losses, and at the end of the year's not a success if you don't win the national championship. A couple losses take you right out of it. In the NFL, it doesn't happen. In the NFL, you've got an actual off season a little bit. You're not recruiting 24/7, 52 weeks a year. I'm not sure what Billy's talking about here, but I'm going to stay on what I'm talking about. Urban Meyer will succeed. You know, they talk about whether you can adapt to the pro game. Look at it. The pro game is played the way Urban Meyer kind of changed. Urban Meyer was one of the forerunners in my mind of changing the college offensive game plans. You know, everybody was running a football, you know, in the 70s and the 80s, and even into the 90s. There were a lot of teams that ran. That was their offense, and there's still some around today that run the wishbone and some other antique systems, but they work for them. They got to do what they got to do because of the personnel that they have. But Urban Meyer was at the forefront of changing these things, the spread offenses, right? The run pass options. He was on the cutting edge of this game changing in college. And then it changed pretty much the same way in the pros. Very interestingly enough, the game is played a lot like his Utah teams played back in the day. And then obviously that carried on to Florida and Ohio State. And they played very, very, very pro football, NFL-like offenses. So I think Urban Meyer, as far as X's and O's, is going to do fine. Not sure I would have chosen Jacksonville if I was Urban Meyer. San Diego. The Chargers of LA were interested in him. And they've got a quarterback. While he's going to get a generational player in Trevor Lawrence, who's only the he's probably the only sure thing of quarterbacks in this draft. We'll run those down here in a minute, but the other guys all have their flaws, and we'll talk about that in a second. I probably would have been more interested in the Charger job, but Urban Meyer took Jacksonville. He likes the area, obviously, having coached in Florida. His family likes the area. Apparently, he has a relationship with the owner that goes back a few years that I just became aware of when he did sign. And they're going to give him a certain amount of control to do what he wants to do. And I think Urban Meyer will have success if Urban Meyer can tone down the, worrying about the losses and whatnot. So, oops, wrong pick. Meyer and Lawrence should be interesting. Agreed. You know, it's funny, on one of the other posts I put up, I think I might have been a vlog I did about Urban Meyer a couple of weeks ago. I also did a vlog about this very topic a few weeks ago. So I've tried to stay out in front of these topics. So every week I do at least one, 10 or 11 minute vlog. If you guys are interested, and I keep it a little shorter and succinct to what we do here on a Sunday morning, which is kind of stream of consciousness as I try to include you guys in the show. I agree that Meyer and Lawrence will be interesting. I did hear, it had to be an Alabama fan, that they heard that Meyer was going to really shake it up, and he was going to take both Mac Jones and Devontae Smith, and not Trevor Lawrence. That's not going to happen. Jacksonville has a few tools on offense. Good point, Drew. The D does have some big issues, but again, he's going to bring in some good coaches. He's got connections, and I think he'll get that turned around. Are they going to be in a Super Bowl contender next year? No. They're going to have a rookie quarterback. They're going to have defensive issues, but they're going to be I'll go back to your comment in a second, Rattle. Did I copyright it? What, my Urban Meyer take? No, I should have, right? I could sue somebody like the guy's threatening to sue me. I'm just some guy in East Greenbush, New York, running off at the mouth. Guy's going to sue me. Now, if I read his book and read it word for word on the air, I guess then maybe I'd be stealing his copyright, right? Rado says, Jacksonville, no tax. Good point. He has a laughing emoji, but he's not wrong. I mean, again, you're talking about, I don't remember seeing what the final number was. I know he was asking for $12 million. I don't believe he got that. But that's not that's not without merit. Look at, when I retire, I'm not going to be here in New York getting taxed up the yazoo. I'll be in Florida. I'll be in Tennessee. I don't know. I say that. My wife isn't watching, I hope. We go back and forth. We'll be here. We won't be here. I'd prefer to be somewhere warmer where I can play golf every day and save my money. But there's other considerations in life. So it's not all about me. We do know it should be, but anyway, I think the Urban Meyer move is a great move for Jacksonville. As I said, and again, to go back to the copyright situation with Urban Meyer, I said when I talked about what was next for Urban Meyer, I had actually thought the only college job he would take would be Texas, and it wasn't even open at the time. And I also said in that blog that if I was Urban Meyer, I'd be going to the Chargers and not Jacksonville, just because of the better facilities, better ownership, a quarterback who's already playing great and at the top, moving towards the top echelon of quarterbacks. Patriots to the Titans. I'm not sure what that's about. Home residents in Florida, like Jeet. Yeah. Save a lot of money, guys. Got to stay there half the year, though. Don't forget. Let's move on, Jet fans. I know you're waiting for this one. The Jets made their pick. Robert Saleh, defensive coordinator for San Francisco. When I first saw this, guys, I wasn't terribly excited about the pick, but moving to Tennessee. Mark, I will not become a Tennessee fan. If I were to move away, I would still be a Patriot fan. Just got to, hopefully bars will be open where I can go out and watch the game again. I got a very funny note here written down, guys. I got to tell you about it in a minute. Let's get back to Robert Saleh. Last week, Alicia caught part of my show from London. Billy's daughter caught her show from London. It's funny that I have seen, because I do check the analytics on Facebook a lot. And before this, I haven't seen this one, but I have had some viewers in England. So if she'd watched the show previous to this past week, I would have got her. And if not, now I'm doubling my usage out there. So, back to Robert Saleh. So thank Alicia for watching, by the way, Billy. I appreciate that. And I don't know if her husband's a sports fan or not. If he is, let me know who he roots for. Probably the Seahawks or the Jets. Is he from New York City? Let's get back to Robert Saleh. I wasn't crazy about the pick when I first read it, but in digging into it a little bit, I mean, he's a very respected guy around the league. Shanahan and Lynch had nothing but glowing things to say about him. he's probably going to bring along the passing coordinator, Mike LaFleur, from the 49ers with him, which to me kind of signals they may be looking to keep Darnold, which I don't think is a bad move, man. That's why you need to pick, I think, and probably drafting a defensive coordinator. You may not be picking a wide receiver at number 2. I don't know that he's going to go defense for number 2 either, because there's nobody that stands out. Oh, Rob is a rugby fan, no football, huh? Oh, well. Jets head coach looks exhausting. Hopefully he doesn't burn out. You mean being the head coach? You don't mean he looks exhausted, right? I agree. I don't know what the deal is. They just haven't hired the right guys. I thought they wouldn't go the assistant path again because, as far as I'm concerned, Adam Gase, still. Well, I guess I can't make that argument when the Gase was a head coach, but they've pretty much hired as head assistant coaches to be their head coach and coordinators at that consistently through the years. It's been their MO. They've never really brought in guys who have had head coaching experience. So I think he's going to keep Darnold. It's possible they'll trade down. I mean, again, I love the kid, Devontae Smith. I think the Jets pass on him if they trade down or they pick Sewell, the tackle from Oregon. Miami's going to swoop up Devontae Smith to put with Tua. I really believe that. I've seen some, by the way, and I think I told Mark Robertshaw this the other day. I've seen some mock drafts that have Miami getting Smith and Najee Harris in the first round, because I think the Dolphins pick 13th and 3rd. They've got the Texans pick, and I'm not sure what the pick they have that has them at at 13 or 14. But I saw several mock drafts that have them getting both Harris and Smith, and I'll tell you what, you want to inject some excitement into an offense, there you go. Let's see what Rado's got to say here. Billy says keep Sam. They have to keep Darnold. They haven't given him any options. We're too quick to pull kids, let them grow and build around them. I don't disagree. Problem is players get beat down over years. Happened to Jim Plunkett. I remember Jim Plunkett and the Patriots, and it happened the same way when I was younger, long before the Patriots were any good, Bill. You do have to give him. I'll tell you what, if they want to give up on him and he's got a very friendly, team-friendly contract, it wouldn't happen that he'd get moved within the division. But I can tell you that BB would be happy to have him and try to rebuild his confidence in Foxborough. Billy's saying they should have hired the Philly coach, Peterson. I'll tell you what, Bill, that was my original thought. But I think the ugliness of his departure, he was going to stay. Wentz wanted him out. He got in a pissing match with Carson Wentz on the way out the door and Philly management with some things he demanded for next year. And I think some of that ugliness and the fact that the way things fell apart there between a quarterback, they're playing a lot of money, and pulling him for Jalen Hurts, who is not taking any teams to the Super Bowl in the near future. I think that hurt Peterson. So I don't think Peterson's going to get a job this year. I thought he would get a job right away if he left. This was during the season when they were talking about him leaving of his own volition. I thought he'd be back in the league as a head coach next year because he's that good. But, man, things got out of control there this year between him and the quarterback, and that can't happen. That can't happen. The quarterback making all the money is going to win eventually in that scenario, unless you're Bill Belichick, right? Yeah, Mark's happy to hear Smith and Harris maybe in Miami. A lot of things happen. I mean, these mock drafts are what they are, though, Mark. I look at hundreds of them before the draft, and none of them even come close by the time we get there between trades and, and free agency and things like that. So we'll see what happens. Make Peterson the offensive coordinator. Maybe. Peterson, I think, with a D, but I think I know who you mean. The guy we're just talking about, right? Maybe. He may take a step down. It's unusual for guys to be, well, Jason Garrett did it. I don't think it's really the norm, though, for head coaches to leave a head coaching job and then become a coordinator right the next year. I guess it's happened more often than I'm thinking, but it's possible. I mean, that maybe his way back into a head coaching job. It's happened. Jason Garrett's now a viable candidate all of a sudden in Philadelphia, which I'm sure they're excited about. Actually, I'm a Jason Garrett fan. I mean, I know guys get mad about the constant rah, 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 rah. I don't think Garrett did a horrible job in Dallas. I mean, they didn't win playoff games, but he gave them some stability where they hadn't had it before him, and I don't think Jason Garrett's a horrible head coach. I really don't. I don't think he's going to play well in Philadelphia, but we'll see. Philadelphia's got to get themselves a guy who can straighten out Carson Wentz. So, and interestingly enough, on that topic, they're interviewing Josh McDaniels this week. They're going to interview Joe Brady. Brady, I talked up for the Jet job. Tremendous up and coming offensive mind. I just love the things Joe Brady did in LSU, and I like what he did. With not a lot of talent and not great results, wins and losses wise, in Carolina this year. So I think Brady's been interviewed for pretty much every opening, and those are things. He may not get a job this year just because you got to go through these things now and again, but I think he'll get that. I think he'll get it eventually. So anyway, Jet fans, I think you probably got a guy that is probably well respected around the league. The big thing is they talk about is his leadership and the way players will follow him and run through a wall for him. And to be an NFL head coach, that's what you need to be as a leader, right? Set a tone for an organization. X's and O's. I mean, you're still involved in all of that, but you got to be a leader and you got to be consistent in what you do. That's why the guys who have been successful over long periods of time, like Tom Landry, Chuck Noll, Don Shula, Bill Belichick, Vince Lombardi, Bill Parcells. Sorry, I got to mention him. That's why they're successful. They're leaders. So anyway, I'll give the Jets an A for this hire. Let's move on a little bit. And I like the fact that he hasn't brought him yet, but by all reports, Mike LaFleur will be the offensive coordinator. And I think that'll help Darnold because I think the offense that they run in San Francisco would help Darnold a lot. Look at it for Jimmy G. Jimmy G's not, Patrick Mahomes, but he's an efficient NFL quarterback in that system. What else? Arthur Smith signs with the Falcons. He was the offensive coordinator for Tennessee. Not know much about Arthur Smith. We'll see. What Atlanta's going to do this year is kind of up in the air. Matty Ice is getting up in years. It'll be interesting whether they try to rebuild around him or move him. I'm not sure how friendly or unfriendly his contract situation is, because you got to remember that you trade guys with these big contracts and you got a lot of dead cap space, and it can just handicap teams for years. That's where the Phillies are with the Phillies. That's where Philly is with Carson Wentz. Can't move him. Chargers are looking like they're going to hire Brian Daboll from Buffalo, the offensive coordinator, who's done such a great job there. Not a done deal. They're still doing interviewing. And the Eagles, it's funny, the thing I was going to write down, I wrote down Engel interviews Josh McDaniels. I didn't write down Eagles. Oh, let's see. What's Billy talking about here? I should read Billy's stuff before I put it up. I advocate for the NFL to go back to the prior setup, not this week. Long crap. I have no comment. Smith had an ace running back. Atlanta doesn't have one. Well, draft's coming up. Lots of running backs. You can get running backs all through the draft. Again, I don't expect that Atlanta team. That Atlanta team's got some weapons, by the way, outside of running back. Julio Jones is still, if he's healthy, and Ridley when he's healthy, are really, really good wide receivers. So if they keep Matt Ryan and they decide to go forward with him, they could potentially retool that defense a bit, bring in a running back, and compete. We'll see. Let's see what else. The Eagles interviewed Josh McDaniels along with a bunch of others, and it looks like the Lions from NFL draft. Oh, the week-long crap for the draft Billy's talking about. I gotcha. All right. Draft used to be a day. Well, you know what? It's all about TV, Billy, and getting eyeballs. Everything gets changed and bastardized for TV. So I don't disagree necessarily. It doesn't need to be, Thursday night to Sunday. Last thing I have, a couple things on the head coaching front still. It looks like the Lions are going to hire former Giant tight end, Dolphin tight end, Dan Campbell is the front runner there. So that'll be interesting. Campbell's been a highly regarded assistant too for quite a few years now. He's currently with the Saints, I believe, as their tight end coach. But he's highly respected around the league, and he's been interviewing for open spots for a few years now. So the last thing I wanted to chat about was Eric Bieniemy. Interestingly enough, now has had 5 interviews. Hasn't been able to interview with Texas yet, and he can't because this is the offensive coordinator for the Chiefs, by the way. And, the best positions for him are gone. Texans are liable to make a move before he can even interview because now it's done. They can't interview anymore till the playoffs are over. And Eric Bieniemy has been talked up a lot. In fact, Deshaun Watson went so far as to pretty much say in so many words, I want out of here because they haven't even interviewed Bieniemy. So, but again, I mentioned here a week or so ago that Bieniemy's got a couple of things in his personal life that have come up recently that might be holding him back. I can't swear to that, but it's entirely possible. But Deshaun Watson thinks that, it's a Rooney Rule thing and they're not really, and I'm not sure that I'll be honest with you, the Rooney Rule, and I understand I understand the reason for the Rooney Rule when it was put into place, but I think the NFL teams have found a way to take advantage of the Rooney Rule. And, look at, the Jets brought in Marvin Lewis to interview, and I guarantee you they had no intention of hiring Marvin Lewis. So that was probably just to do their due diligence. And I'm afraid that Eric Bieniemy might be being used the same way by some of these NFL teams. But we'll have to see about that, I guess. Billy talks about Green. Yeah, TV takes over everything, Billy. Whether it's NCAA playoff, the baseball playoffs expanding to 16 teams. I'm going to talk about that here in a little bit. The NFL expanding. They probably won't go backwards, by the way. You don't think TV loves the fact that they got 2 extra games last week? They love it. So that's it for the NFL for this week, guys. I'm going to move on to Major League Baseball. I don't have any music. I should get some Yankee music downloaded here. Do I have anything? I don't. It doesn't really work, does it? We'll talk about the Yankees. We'll talk about the Mets. We're going to talk about a couple of things. Yankees this week. Huge news for the Yankees, especially on the coattails of the Mets signing, first trading for and then getting him under contract for this year anyway and avoiding arbitration, Lindor, the shortstop. So the Yankees' main goal all offseason has been to get DJ LeMahieu back in the fold, which they did this week with a 6-year, $90 million contract, which I think works for both sides. It's going to take him into, I think he'll be 39 maybe when the contract ends. I'm not that worried about the back end of this contract like you would be with a lot of other ones because they're going to get such value the first 4 years of this contract. Maybe it only takes him to 38. I'm not sure. But either way, two things. It's not a lot of money in the back end. And also, there's a very good chance that DJ LeMahieu, assuming no major injuries, continues to be a productive player into his 90s, right? Or his 90s, into his 90s. Wow, into his 90s. Very doubtful. If he does, he's going to make a lot of money. No, into his late 30s. Conditioning's different today. There's other factors I don't think apply to DJ LeMahieu, but there's other factors. But I think this was a great deal for both teams or both sides. I said both teams yesterday too. I did a vlog on this topic yesterday. Rattles, again, the teams do this a lot, right? You pay for 6 and you get 4, but again, I think there's a chance they get production out of them even on the back end of this. There's always contracts. That's the end. That's Major League Baseball today. The back end of these contracts. I mean, look at Pujols with the Angels. Do you think they're happy paying him the money they're paying him for the production they get? Doubtful. So huge move there. They signed Corey Kluber to a 1-year, $11 million contract, which, again, is a gamble that's well worth it for, again, it's funny to say $11 million is a pittance, but it is, but it isn't. It's a good gamble. He won the Cy Young twice. He hasn't pitched much the last couple of years. Rattle his 90s. I don't think I'll be watching him when he's 90, Rattle. I don't think I'll be able to see him in his 90s. I think I'll be long gone. I hope to still be here. Back to Culver. It's a gamble for the Yankees, but probably one that's worth it. Hasn't pitched. He pitched only 8 games the last couple of years. He broke his. He'll be retired. You're thinking of Bobby Bonilla, probably, Rick. The Mets have Rick. I think maybe what's his name? Drew Ehrlich can speak to this. He's a bigger Met fan, but there's a Bobby Bonilla Day every year for the Mets where they pay him. I think, I'm not sure how many years this goes. I think there's still quite a few years to go on this, but they start paying him, yes. And Bobby Bonilla went on to play for other teams after the Mets as well. His name is Kluber. What'd I say? Kluber. Sorry, I said Kluber. Didn't I say Kluber the first time? Now you got me all screwed up. His name is not Kyber. His name is Kluber. Now you got me all mixed up, Bill. You're Drew saying. If I say Kluber, just who I'm talking about. Don't pick apart my speech patterns, guys. I grew up in Perth. Kluber. Pitch 8 games in 2 years. Now, if he gets back to any semblance of his previous acumen with the Indians, I think this could pay off. Here's the, there it is. 2035 is the end of Bobby Bonilla's contract. Man, I might not even see the end of that. Oh my gosh. Good deal. But what is Bobby? There's a date too they pay him, and I know that there was some talk that I'm getting off beating the track here again, but there was some talk that the Mets' new owner was going to have some fun with it and have a Bobby Bonilla day at Shea Stadium every day when they have to give him this check. I think that would be actually interesting and kind of fun. Back to the Yankees. Look at the Yankees still got some issues, guys. Again, I did a vlog yesterday. I won't go into a lot of detail, but I'll cover it again quickly. It's great to get DJ back in the fold. But the pitching is still, you know what? They have sworn that they do not want to go over the salary cap and pay a luxury tax this year, which I think is $210 million. And the way I figured, they got between $7 and $10 million left to spend this year on players. Tanaka's not going to come back in that scenario. They might be able to re-sign Gardy to be outfield depth. And they're not going to get any of these other major guys. Trevor Bauer's still out there. They're not going to be able to bring any of these guys in if they're committed to staying under the cap. Now, maybe they can trade for him later. And there's some guys that are on the... There's a ton of free agents out there. Guys, we're less than 4 weeks. Yeah, we're officially less than 4 weeks till pitchers and catchers. There's a ton of free agents out there. Go take a look at the free agent market. There's some really... there's really good players, and there's some not so good players, but serviceable players available. Yankees right now are going to be putting a lot of heat on the kids in like Jordan Montgomery, who maybe isn't a kid anymore, but Garcia, Schmidt would have to step up. They got to hope Jermaine comes back, I guess. And that's still up in the air. He's been cleared to return, but it's unclear whether the Yankees are going to commit to him or not. So, and that's assuming Kluber plays well. So again, there's some questions there, and I'm also, the other thing that bothers me a little bit. July 1st is Bonilla Day. They should have that day. The other thing outside of the pitching, I think that the relief pitching is fine. They'll probably bring in another arm or so, but starting pitching, number one. My other big issue is I thought it was important to be able to get Torres off a shortstop and back to second base. It's not going to happen now. I mean, it could happen if they were to make a trade, because you got to make the dollars work again if this works out. And the only guy you're going to trade in that scenario is going to be Luke Vogt. And I just don't think they're going to trade Luke Vogt. I just don't think they are. They talked about it. They talked about it very seriously early in spring training. Yeah, you do have Severino coming back late in the year too, Rado. I should have mentioned that. But again, there's no guarantees there. He's been hurt for 3 years. The starting pitching depth is really woeful. If the kids step up, then I'm happy. But if they don't step up, it's not a good sign. Anyway, back to Torres. There was a lot of talk very early in spring training about trading Luke Vogt. while he's at the peak of his value. But then they had trouble getting LeMahieu into the fold. They played some chicken with him. They got him back in. It's the same thing. If you didn't watch my vlog yesterday, this situation felt very similar to Derek Jeter back in, I don't remember the year, 2009, maybe 2010, where Brian Cashman wouldn't cave into Derek Jeter, and he said, "Go out, get a offer, bring it back to me from somebody else." And he really didn't come back with much. So the Yankees, Derek blinked and stayed a Yankee. So I don't know. Without moving Luke Vogt, you're not going to get a shortstop. You can't sign another free agent. You could trade for one, I guess. They've talked about trading in the past for Brandon Crawford, who is really on the backside of his career. So, I mean, he'd be an upgrade defensively, but again, I don't know if that's really the way they ought to go. There's a couple free agents that we talked about, Semien from Seattle, or the A's, wherever he's from. Where is he from, Drew? You'll straighten me out here. Where the heck is he? I lost my notes here now. Whatever. Listen. Oh, he's an A. What am I talking about? He's an A. But again, you don't have the money. You don't have the money unless you clear space. I don't know how they're going to do it, or they're going to go over. I'm not sold on the fact that they're not going over the cap. We could still see Tanaka back here. We could still see a shortstop come in here and DJ play all over the place again. And I would like to see him re-sign Gardy, I think, for a year to get some outfield depth. They've only got Talkman in the outfield to back up Frazier, and these guys are going to get hurt, right? I mean, these guys can't get through a season. Judge and Frazier and Hicks and Stanton. Well, Stanton can't play the outfield. He's got a DH. Drew, I'm not putting your comments up anymore. Whatever. I said Drew Bledsoe wrong for many years too, and I survived. All right. So anyway, what was I talking about? The Yankees in their depth. They need to improve the bench depth. They need to improve the pitching staff, starting pitching staff, and I wouldn't wait too long. We're a month out of training camp, and you know what? Maybe they get some free agents on the cheap, because we're getting late. We're getting late. Well, you got to trade somebody for these guys, and maybe you can trade kids for Castillo. I'm not sure. But again, the shortstop position is still a worry of mine. And I won't even get into the catcher, because it's a done deal. They brought him back. I'm rooting for him to rebound. I don't even care. He can't hit $150, but he doesn't even have to hit, 280. Just catch the ball. Call a good game. Receive the ball cleanly, and I'll be happy. All right. Let's move on to the Mets for a second. Mets did a great job in getting Lindor not to go to arbitration. I think he got $22 million. Of course, this trade is not a win for the Mets unless they sign him long term. I really don't see it being a problem. The owner's got lots of money. I mean, they might have more money than the Yankees now. Mets might own this town. They're looking really, really good. I think the Mets are probably. So again, let's stick with Lindor for a second. I foresee them signing him and that being, the cornerstone of their future with Pete Alonso, and Conforto and some other guys. They got a really deep team. I still see them bringing in another free agent. George Springer's still out there. I know guys don't love him because of his age and whatever else, but you're probably going to get him on the cheap. Any of these guys that are still out there are not going for above premium dollars a month before spring training. So Mets made a great move getting, McCann at catcher. I'm sure the Mets are really kind of hoping that the NL goes with the DH, which I'm going to talk about in a second, because that's still up in the air with a month before we go to spring training. We don't even know what the rules are yet, by the way, which I'll touch on in a second. And I probably won't be in a very great mood when I talk about this. But I'm sure the Mets are hoping for the DH because that gets them the ability to get Alonso and Smith on the lineup on a consistent basis, and also, move some other guys around. If they should bring Springer in, they've got some great depth in the outfield and potential DH, first base. They've got some, they've got McNeil who can play around the infield. He's probably going to be a starting second baseman now, though, most likely. I like their pitching depth. Now with Carrasco coming in, if he's anything like he was prior to his health issues, he'll be fine. I'm a little surprised that other than Trevor May, they're pretty much coming back with the same, and maybe Brad Bach wasn't there, but Brock wasn't there, but they're basically got a lot of the same guys from last year's bullpen, and Diaz is still listed as the closer. I hope for the Mets fans' sake, he's not the closer when the season starts. But I don't know amongst the guys they have there who would be. So anyway, I like the Mets. I like the Mets' chances here. I think they'll be rooting for. I think they should bring in George Springer, and I think they should be rooting for the full-time DH. That's what I think. Just to touch on a couple other things. We'll talk about free agents while we're talking about it. Bauer and Springer are probably the biggest two guys that are still out there. Again, it's going to be hard for these guys to get premium money. I can't get this off of here. See you later, Bill. Didn't see you leaving. What's Drew got here? Mets need. What do you got here? Yeah, I don't. You know what? No team can have too many starters today, Drew. And they've got Carrasco and they've got Peterson, which might be question marks. You got Matz at the end of that rotation, and Syndergaard is out until they say he'll pitch this year. But again, when you're coming off Tommy John surgery, who knows what's going to happen? Hand, you're right. They're looking at Brad Hand, but also saw that Brad Hand, and then I don't remember where it was, might have been close to signing somewhere. Let's just take a quick look here at well, maybe not. I don't think he was. Let me just check the news here for a second. They should be interested in Hand. He's a really good pitcher, by the way. So a lot of guys avoided arbitration, by the way. I don't know where I saw that note. It's probably gone from where I saw it this morning. Oh, the Astros. You got the Mets, Astros, and Blue Jays interested in Hand. Blue Jays really want to be a player here, I think. So, Mets would do well to bring him in, I think. That'd be a great call, I think, True. And they do need more starters. So, anyway, I think the Mets are with that new ownership, I think the Mets are now going to be a major player here in the National League year after year, similar to what the Yankees have done. Rialto, I'll say his name wrong too, Drew, so correct me. Riamolto. This guy should have names like Smith and Engel and things I can say. Phillies have now offered him 5 years for $100 million. A lot of money for a 30-year-old catcher. These deals are a little different on the back end. than, TJ LeMahieu's contract we're talking about. We're talking about $20 million. And we're talking about a catcher who's probably not going to be, I wouldn't think, is going to be a catcher when he's 35 years old. Look what the Twins did. Oh gosh, who was their Mauer? Yeah, moving to first base, and they got a first baseman who doesn't hit home runs, making $1 gazillion. Wasn't a great move. Real Mutu, close enough. I got to get hooked on phonics. So anyway, there's still a lot of movement, guys. You're going to see a lot of movement up until spring training and probably into spring training as far as player movement goes. Now let's talk a little bit about the rules. Again, I'm probably going to have a hard time fitting the NBA in here today. It's going to be pretty quick, but let me talk about the rules. I'm not happy. The DH, I'm fine. If they go to the universal DH, I don't care. It is what it is. Even as an American League fan, I haven't been a big fan of the DH since 1973 when it happened. Actually, I was a fan when I was a kid because you got to see guys hang on and play that probably couldn't have later on. But I didn't like it later on. I didn't like the strategy it took away in games. I didn't like the fact that there was no double switches. Actually, somebody had a great, who was it? Somebody had a great idea. And it's not new. I guess he's had it for a while. I want to give credit to where it belongs. So this isn't my idea for anybody who talks about copyright infringements. I can't remember who I saw came up with this idea. It'll pop in my head eventually. That everybody has a DH, but you only have the DH as long as you're starting pitchers in the game, and then it's gone. It's an interesting concept to think about. So we'll see. We've gone live now, by the way, on Northeast Streaming Sports. They've added our live feed over there now. So welcome all of those watching from there or may see this later. Thank you, Linda, for doing that. We're going to talk about all of this here in a second, Drew. So the DH, I think that would be an interesting compromise. Have the DH and have it go away when your starting pitcher goes out. It would change a lot of the way the game is managed today. So we are also talking about, as Drew mentioned, expanded playoffs staying 10 teams to 16 teams. By the way, going back to the DH, the players obviously want it. The owners don't because it's more high-paid positions they've got to pay. And the players' union wants it. So all of these things are still subject to approval on both sides. 7-inning doubleheaders. Go away. It's ridiculous. The game's 9 innings. The game's been 9 innings for 140 years. God. They're still talking about starting extra innings with a man on second base. It's not baseball anymore. That's not baseball. Why? You can't fundamentally change the game. And I hated it last year. Hated it. Oh, gosh. Now, see, I knew this would rile me up. 7-inning doubleheaders, same thing, Drew. Expanded playoffs. Why 16 teams? Too many. Too many. You're going to have under 500 teams in the playoffs every year. Can't. No. So all these things are still up in the air. It's amazing to me these are still up in the air with, a couple of weeks before spring training. I don't know how you don't get these things put to bed. And let's put this up here. Linda says we're live on Northeast Streaming Sports. Hope you guys will join. Hope you guys will take a look at the shows over there, by the way. Well, I'll talk about that before I wrap up. Look, let me jump into the NBA quick. It's 10:45. I don't want to go too long. I've been asked not to talk about the Knicks too much because I touted the Knicks like crazy on this show, on Mac and Jack, and the Knicks now have lost 5 in a row. Not played well either. Randall still played well. Julius Randle still played well, but the minutes are starting to pile up for him. Barrett's been very inconsistent. They really miss Burks, who's been out since the third game of the season. He's their best three-point shooter, although Kevin Knox is now playing better and may become a bigger part of this rotation going forward. Whatever. They just got to get things straightened out. I'm not going to spend a lot of time here on the Knicks because, again, I promised I wouldn't to all the fans out there because I still feel there's some promise here, right? And I don't want to jinx them. Let's talk a little bit about the Nets and the big trade they made this week, bringing in James Harden. If you're a Nets fan, and I don't know any Nets fans, I don't think, but if you're a Nets fan, I'll certainly try to get this in front of you. So you can offer your opinion. I'm not a big fan of the trade. James Harden is not the James Harden. Harden needs the ball in his hands. He says he'll be different, and his first game showed he was. He had a triple-double, 30 points. Don't remember, 30, 12, and 14, something like that. Durant and Harden back together again, but it didn't work the first time. Oklahoma City had some good teams. Didn't win. They did get the championship game series. And the problem here is they had a better third wheel in Westbrook then. To me, the big problem in this whole thing, a couple things. Harden's become something of a, I don't know, a prima donna. I don't know. Maybe not. His people say he's not, that he's misunderstood. The exit in Houston was ugly. He came into camp out of shape, and he says he's not out of shape. But, guys, just take a look at the film. It looks like I'm out there in his uniform. He's been got in trouble for violating COVID protocols. And he has to have the ball in his hand, at least historically. He says that will change, and it changed for one night last night. And we'll see how that ends up. I mean, Durant's the key there. And I'll go back to the third wheel. Westbrook is a better third wheel than a Kyrie Irving. Kyrie Irving is a problem on so many fronts. He has worn out his welcome now. He's about to wear out his welcome here. I mean, he may be the next to leave. Never been a Kyrie Irving fan. He couldn't play. He couldn't get along with LeBron James. He couldn't get along with the stars in Boston. For those of you guys who think LeBron James is overrated, just look back at who he won, who the players were that he played with, that he won a championship with in Cleveland. Kyrie Irving is the best of them. Now, Kyrie Irving was playing great, scoring a lot of points before he decided to stop showing up for personal reasons. Kyrie's not happy about whatever. None of us are happy about what's going on in the world today, right? But I go to work every day. Go to work. You want to show some kind of social protest and do it, but go to work. And finally, the Nets docked him his pay. I don't know if it was full pay or not, but still. And I'm sorry, and I don't mean to be too harsh here, but Kyrie Irving's a nut job. He's basically anointed himself the president of the Flat Earth Society. Yeah, the Earth's flat, Kyrie. Where did he go to school? Wasn't he a Duke guy? I'm not positive. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong. He's a Duke guy. How do you get out of Duke, which has one of the better higher education facilities in this country, even for athletes, and think the Earth is flat? Oh my gosh! Don't get me going. So anyway, I mean, it could work. I mean, I've said this from the beginning, before they brought Harden in, that the Nets were going to be either really, really good or really, really bad. or maybe not really, really bad, but a big disappointment. Yeah, well, I guess the moon, that was all fake too. The moon landings were fake. Everything's fake. We can't even get to outer space, Rick. Oh, Kyrie just drives me crazy. I'm sorry. They're nuts. So we'll see. I mean, look, it's early yet. In fact, I was talking the Nets down a little bit at the same time I was talking up the Knicks, and they started to win. I think they're 3-1 since I started doing that, and the Knicks are 0-5. So I guess that's what you want. I don't think my wife wants to come on the show. So anyway, are there any other surprises in the NBA right now? There's a couple. Most of the surprises are bad ones. I mean, some of the teams that are struggling, Brooklyn, like I said, struggling at 8-6, but they've started to win a little bit now. Orlando's only 6-7. The Heat's 4-7 after really playing well in the bubble last year. Denver's only 6-6. On the positive side, you got the Suns at 7-4. And Golden State at 6-6 after really bottoming out last year and losing Thompson again for the year. I don't know. Maybe they can get it together there. So we'll see. The NBA is going to be interesting. I'm a Knicks fan, and I'm trying not to talk the Knicks up, as I said. The Knicks have beat some good teams this year, though, in Milwaukee and Utah and Indiana. I might be stretching it with a good team for Indiana, but anyway, Thibodeau has got it working. He said they know they need to be. They're a practice. They really need to be a good practice team to be able to be a good basketball team. And again, with the shortened training camps and shortened preseason, they haven't had that opportunity. They're going to get some opportunity now. And they're playing a lot more games than teams are used to playing. 4 times in a week. NBA teams weren't necessarily playing 4 times in a week during normal times. So we'll see what happens with the Knicks. I still got some confidence that, it can be a positive year as far as developing players, maybe even sneak into the, 8th spot in the playoffs, whatever. Don't want to be in a lottery. Time to win some games. And I think Thibodeau wants to win games too. So anyway, that's all I got, guys. What I want you to do is continue. Listen, we talked about the Northeast Streaming Sports Network, NESEP, which you see up in the upper right-hand corner. Check it out. Lots of shows there. I don't know, we're up to like 20 shows that are part of this conglomerate. Nothing's changed on our individual shows. But I don't know how many shows we're up to. We got a big meeting here tonight with all of the shows to talk about what we might want to do going forward as far as promoting these shows, the different shows, and making sure that we're all on the same page. So anyway, check it out. Follow the show. If you're not following it yet, follow it now. Again, Northeast Streaming Sports. You can see my show, Mac and Jack. I don't have the list in front of me right now. We're going to have a good time with that. We're going to try to do the best we can to expand it. And I'll invite you to be here with me next Sunday at 9 a.m. We'll be talking about the NFC Championship games. We'll be talking more Major League Baseball, more NBA. We'll get into the NBA deeper, I promise, for those who are looking for more of that. And whatever else comes along. Major League Baseball is going to start taking over our time here, guys, soon. Ed Lynch, Friday, 8 a.m. Eastern Time. Ed Lynch, former Met pitcher, Cubs GM. Going to be a fun chat with Ed Lynch. See you guys next week. Keith Engel, TJ Sports Talk. Enjoy the games.